Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. My name is Joel and with me as always is my faithful co-host
Brian. Hi.
Hi Brian. Welcome to this faith-filled episode of Buffy Boys. We are talking about Season 3, Episode 15, Consequences, the one with all the murder.
Very little murder actually involved in this episode.
No, there's
no murder that happens here.
I would contend that the previous episode had a death and this has a murder. But let's get into that. Do you want to kick us off with
that's not how murder works.
Thing?
No, it's not. Murder has to be premeditated.
Buffy and some replays.
Okay. So this is Season 3, Episode 15. It was first aired on February the 16th, 1999. It was written by Marty Noxon and directed by Michael Gershman. Maybe my handwriting is really bad, but he had previously directed Passion and he directs a couple of other things. He died in 2018, I think we said that when we were doing Passion. That's sad. Okay, so here's your Buffy and summary. Faith lies, blaming Buffy for Finch's death. Giles plans to deal with it quietly. Buffy and Faith see the mayor with Trick. The mayor realizes they know of his villainy. Xander reasons with Faith and she nearly kills him. Angel stops and talks to her about bloodthirstiness. He is getting through when Wesley arrives with Kensal Heavies, from whom Faith escapes to the docks. Buffy and she are attacked by Trick. Faith kills him, saving Buffy. Faith asks the mayor for Trick's job. That was a lot of information. Wow. And I think it does represent pretty well how fragmented this episode is, to be honest.
Yeah. Why say bloodthirstiness when you could just say bloodthirst?
Thirstiness is the... I feel like there is a small distinction there, probably.
I'm not sure if the person writing that summary was...
You're right.
Okay with that.
You're right.
So before we get into this complex and trauma-ridden episode of Buffy, let's talk about a complex and trauma-ridden experience we had this week watching the 1993 video game adaptation Super Mario Brothers.
Woohoo.
Which, before we get any further into this, I'll be absolutely clear, was your idea.
Wasn't.
It was your idea.
It was Spencer's idea. He said it last week. You
definitely were the one who facilitated, pushed, downloaded and said, let's put this on.
Yeah.
So you were responsible for this. So this is a video game adaptation, a film, which is all of which are famously critically acclaimed. And we had Bob Hoskins, we had John Leguizamo, we had Dennis Hopper, and just a lot of really terrifying half reptile, half human, Jim Henson like monstrosities.
It's genuine nightmare fuel. It has almost no relation to Super Mario Brothers or Mario in general. It's terrifying. Yoshi is there and he's just he's fully like, there's no round curves to him. He's fully
a dinosaur.
Toad is like, he has his like head miniaturized and stuck on the body of a like a walking Nazi that's about 6 foot, like 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
So there's goo everywhere, and that goo is actually the king,
who turns out to, in a 3-second scene at the end of the film, when this goo recoalesces into a person, it is Lance Henriksen, who is a reasonably famous actor of Aliens and Terminator fame and other James Cameron properties. But yeah, so the basic premise of this film, I suppose the issue is that Super Mario games don't really have a premise a lot of the time, or not a story that can carry what felt like a lot more than 100 minutes of feature film, but that the asteroid that hit 65 million years ago split the planet dimensionally into Manhattan and Dino-Hattan, in which dinosaurs evolved into some weird amalgam of reptiles and people.
Yeah. And so the people in this world, they're almost exactly the same as us, but somehow they evolved from dinosaurs rather than apes, and it's very confusing.
Yeah, and they evolved burgers naturally somehow, but also dino burgers. And there's Princess Daisy is there, and
but not Princess Peach.
No, but she's like boring out an egg in the start of the film in a nunnery. And there's just like a fully naked baby there, which I always think is really weird. How like sometimes people are just like, we can just show naked babies.
Yeah, I find that weird too.
Just because there's no consistency in whether that's appropriate or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever
sometimes babies come out of the womb fully dressed in properties. And
yes.
Other time it's just like, here's a baby's genitals, and you're just like, okay.
And the weird thing about the film, which is like, okay, that's an understatement, there was so much work put into it in one sense, because the world was fully formed.
Yeah.
The set design was incredibly detailed for what it was.
Yeah. Every extra had like insane costuming and makeup,
definitely had a massive
haircuts.
backstory. It was just haunting. And Fiona Shaw, successful lesbian.
Irish lesbian, yeah.
And we both went the same direction of that. And acclaimed actress Petunia Dursley.
And she was in
Fleabag and in Killing Eve.
She is in Killing Eve on an ongoing basis, yeah.
Yeah, she was in it as well. So a lot of people really risked their careers for this film.
Dennis Hopper wasn't risking anything. That man was on so many drugs.
Yeah.
He was like Hollywood's most notorious drug addict for a long time.
But I think I had a budget of something ridiculous, like 48 million or something.
It was about 40 million, and I made like half that back in the. What's funny is that Shigeru Miyamoto, I think his name is, who created Zelda and Mario and all that stuff. Who's like the original Nintendo guy. Watched the movie and gave the feedback. He was like, "Yes, it was a lot of fun, but I think they stuck too close to the original." And I was like, "What?" I mean, the Mario doesn't really have a story. That's the point. It's that like, as someone who hasn't played any Mario games, Joel, what was that like for you?
Like it was intensely confusing trying to extrapolate which elements of this are ridiculous and which are trying to be elements of the game. Like for example, Dennis Hopper was playing Bowser, but like not explicitly anyway. Yeah, I think what I was found confusing about it is I think they're trying to present it as like a prequel to the games, like that these Mario brothers were real people, but like it was them who inspired the games eventually. Also, weirdly, this is apparently the film that confirmed the fact that Luigi's full name is Luigi Mario.
Oh, really?
That comes from this film. Yeah.
Oh.
And the musician who played Toad, who turned into that, which was really, really haunting, strict top reptile bodyguard, was meant to be Tom Waits. That was who they wanted.
That would have been so much better. I would have watched this movie a lot more if it was Tom Waits.
But it is like, it's absolutely a cultural artifact. Like I love watching
bad movies,
not bad films, like, because a film can't be boring. It has to. There's nothing better than when someone really passionately makes a film and it turns out terrible. Yeah, that's where real cult classic is a lot of the time. And this is a gothic masterpiece of a terrible film.
Gooey.
We've watched this. We've watched Dungeons and Dragons films. We've watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I've watched a lot of good stuff. So this is really in my pantheon now of this makes more sense the drunker you are.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's so good it's bad. Wait, so bad it's good. The other way around.
So speaking of bad, girls and the consequences of their aforementioned bad behavior, we have this episode of Buffy. They do exclusively refer to what happens in this episode as murder.
Yes.
And specifically, the mayor
says murder one.
Murder one, yeah.
Yeah, total nonsense.
Sure. But so essentially what we have here is the aftermath of Bad Girls, where Faith has accidentally slain Alan Finch, the deputy mayor, tried to weigh his body in the sea.
The river, I think.
River makes a lot more sense. And it's surfaced, and now they're on the hunt for his killer. And she's basically getting caught up with Buffy. Buffy feels all this guilt over it, and Faith is having arguably a very dissociative rather than a sociopathic episode, I think, and kind of really dealing with the, like, not able to handle the guilt.
Yes.
And not really understanding anything that's happening.
She exhibits like every trait of like an abused, excessively self-defensive like child, essentially.
Yeah, because she does everything. She tries to pretend it's not happening.
She blames someone else.
She blames someone else. She in turn tries to like use her sexuality to disarm situations with both Xander and Angel, and then tries to kill arguably Xander. So it's a lot going on. It was actually a very heavy episode, I thought, in many ways. Like, I really
what do you think of the episode?
I enjoyed it. I think fragmented is a fair word for its pace.
Yes.
And its narrative. I think it took a lot of time to deal with what are essentially interpersonal issues. So there's no monster in this episode.
No.
But it really took a lot of time to solidify and I don't say this in a critical tone, but the moral position of Buffy as a show, or at the very least the characters within the show, because the stark contrast in the way that Buffy reacted to this and engaged with this to Faith wasn't one-dimensional. There's a real sense of Buffy Summers' personality and values coming through here in a way that were different to Faith. And I enjoyed that it introduced a lot of interesting questions about, are Slayers better than other people? Are they killers inherently? Given that in Giles's works they're on the nightly forefront of a war, is there some expectation that mistakes will happen?
Yeah, it's a weird one. So yeah, I mean, obviously this episode brings up genuine moral questions and moral philosophical questions. I'm not going to bring it into an existential space because I don't think it's that useful, specifically because Buffy in this episode represents that kind of Kantian objectivity of morality. So the traditional moral philosophy question is there's one overweight man who you can push onto tracks which has a train that's hurtling towards 6 children. And if you push this man in front of the tracks, you will save the 6 people. But by doing so, you'll have killed a person, Yeah. And the idea there is that, the objective moral question is like killing a person is wrong, but, the utilitarian aspect is, but you'll be saving these lives. So what happens in this episode is that Buffy represents the position that killing is wrong. Just this is an objective moral truth inherently that you need to face up to the consequences of your actions, and you need to be answerable to them. And Faith voices the opinion that they have, as Slayers, they are in the plus column. They have saved thousands of lives. Buffy stopped the apocalypse a couple of times. So surely that indicates that you are an overall morally worthwhile person, and that this one blip doesn't detract from that. And it's a conversation in this episode, which I think is actually my favorite part of the episode, is that it is an active and ongoing conversation of moral philosophy. Is it right? Is it acceptable in this situation to kill? I think Giles has the best response here, which is that he does actually take a genuinely useful subjective perspective on the moral situation there, where he says, yeah, it's not good, but accidents do happen, and we'll investigate it and look into it to see if because if Faith had killed this person with maybe she was reckless and she needs to have that looked at kind of thing, and make sure she's not being reckless on an ongoing basis. Maybe she actually realized it was a person and killed him anyway. If she didn't realize it at all, then we can maybe there's no action needed, but owning up to it. So I mean, the issue in this episode is not that Faith killed a person, really. It is Faith's reaction to it, and what that indicates about her character, what that indicates about the trauma she has, and about it's her total, as Giles says, it's her complete unwillingness to accept her guilt.
It's a processing thing, which I think is, and that's not to say that her killing Finch is not an issue, but I think it is that level of maturity and that level of mediation where Buffy is saying it did happen, it was wrong, and Faith is saying it didn't happen and it doesn't matter anyway. And Giles is actually saying, well, there's neither of these arguments will prevent the fact that these things will happen. It's how we respond to it. And so much of Buffy as a show's philosophy is, as we've said before, is ultimately about, it's not about what happens, it's how you react to it and how you engage with it and take control and agency. And Faith, and I think the argument that people in the episode make, and I think which we can consider, is that could Buffy have done this? Could this have happened to Buffy? This is the 3rd murder investigation Buffy's been involved in 2 years.
Yeah. So, all of which had the same detective.
Yeah,
his name is Detective
Paul Stein. And he's growing a mustache in this episode, because I presume he's going through some stuff at the moment.
It doesn't look great.
He's not very good at his job.
He's really bad at his job. He must be he doesn't even take a moment to note, oh wait, this girl's been at the center of 3 fucking murders at this point.
Yeah, every time someone's neck hemorrhages, she's just at the ice cream shop next door or whatever. But no, it's an interesting one in regards to that. I think at times the episode tries to suggest that this couldn't happen to Buffy because she's not as reckless, but I think it could. I think well, it could, because it did.
you know, the issue with Ted was that Buffy like didn't really intend it, but also was reckless and would have killed that man if that had been what happened.
Exactly.
So,
Ted did not intentionally, for any robotic purposes, stumble down the stairs. She did kick him fully down that flight of stairs,
and she thought he was a human. So
yeah, no, absolutely, and that is very much part of it. So I think it could have happened to her, but it's so fundamental about how she reacted. Buffy did not do anything wrong in this situation. Maybe the thing she was most responsible for up until a point was not telling someone straight away, but she clearly is trying to find a way to do that. That's not going to ruin everyone's life in one go. But Faith tries to put the responsibility on her, saying that she's equally as culpable for the murder. And yet, Buffy feels such a specific guilt about this. And I think in terms of what we discussed before, starting with Prophecy Girl and going on, about this imagery of water and this sense of how she starts this episode in this vision of the deputy mayor in the river pulling her down, and when she manages to, his corpse pulling her down, and when she manages to rise up, Faith is there to drown her and push her down. So she's feeling the pressure from both sides in terms of feeling.
Okay, so you're reading my notes. I see. That's nice of you.
No, I've not. I presumed you were going here, and I've given you a lead and a segue.
Yeah. So the opening dream is actually really nice and concise, and I was actually reading a bit of an essay about dreams in Buffy, just in general, by Donald Keller. The essay is called Spirit Guides and Shadow Selves. So he looks at this specific dream and he says he identifies the following elements. 1, it sums up the events of Bad Girls. Alan Finch killed and then dumped in the harbour by Faith, and Faith's antagonistic attitude towards Buffy and the problem of the murder. The drowning motif refers not only to Buffy's fake drowning the previous episode, but also to her temporary death in Prophecy Girl, the first season finale, which created the extra Slayer and thus eventually Faith. So that's one really interesting element. You know, Buffy's drowning is very much connected to Faith because it started the new Slayer line, if you get me. It also happened in the last episode, and as we've said a couple of times, it's like a baptism. Water tends to represent a transition to adulthood and a purity kind of test to some degree. So water heavily associated with surprise and innocence, where Buffy loses her virginity, and also loses loses Angel as well. And then obviously in Prophecy Girl too. You know, I really don't like the phrase, I really don't like talking about people losing their virginity just like conversationally, because I don't want to ascribe that value to people. I think because obviously like these days people are much more like virginity is such a conceptual thing. It's not something that you want to apply to people across the board. I actually think, and I think a hot fix right now is one of these linguistic changes we need to make, is that when she has sex for the first time. Yeah, exactly. So the episode where Buffy has sex for the first time, and that's all that is. Yeah, I'm not going to say that anymore. I don't like that phrase at all. Anyway, so number 2, it dramatizes Buffy's feelings of anxiety caught between her external problem, the mayor and his dead assistant, and her internal problem, fellow Slayer Faith. And then 3, it particularly suggests the future, representing Faith as equivalent to Finch, the mayor's once and future assistants. So in its almost iconic simplicity, then, it basically encapsulates the entire episode and introduces the problem of the murder, the conflict between the Slayers, and Faith's final defection to the mayor's side. It is essentially a single charged image. Amazing how much freight it bears. And it's absolutely true. And it's very, if you don't mind me returning to a phrase that I quite enjoy, synecdochal of the whole, you know, absolutely. Which is something that Buffy does as a show very well, is gives us simple images to encapsulate the whole. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it swings for the fences with symbolic imagery sometimes in a way that's not obtuse, but that's accessible. I think as an average viewer, even if you can't necessarily describe exactly why it's so concise an introduction, it is, and I think you get that when you get that sense. There's often like a sub I was going to say subtextual, a sub verbal communication that happens in kind of metaphorical imagery in this kind of production, whereby you are actually conveying meaning, even if a viewer doesn't necessarily understand it. Like if they see Faith drowning Buffy, you know, they understand that Buffy's feeling drowned by Faith, and potentially it's going to happen as well. You know, you don't always need to liminally understand something to engage. Is liminal? Liminal.
Yeah, liminal on the median level.
Yeah, to be able to have received the information as a viewer. We were actually talking about this last night, though. I mean, like, Buffy is just such a it's a great text because it's just so accessible.
Yeah,
and I think
we do actually talk about Buffy in our free time as well.
Yeah, we do.
Not just on the podcast.
So, but like Buffy, like a great piece of art needs to be accessible. If it's only accessible to like people in ivory towers who have intense education and training, then it's failed as a work of art, I think. Yeah.
And it was something that was very relevant to that recently, last couple of days, I saw, one of these, current exchanges on Twitter where Beth Midler had tweeted a picture of 3 girls in an art gallery all looking at their phone while the art was behind them, like, what's wrong with this picture? And Anthony Oliveira, who is one of the other hosts on Slayer Fest 98, retweeted it and basically articulated that he has a degree in Baroque art, and he spends half his time in galleries on his phone because either he is looking up as what the context of these pictures are, let's see what their contemporaries were like, making sure that he understands the what he's looking at, and that people go and create art to be venerated and deified and put so sterile on a pedestal. It's meant to exist in the world and you'll be part of it, and art is a physical thing that will not break if you drop it.
But also, I mean, like, art doesn't have to be appreciated by everyone. I mean, like, some people get dragged to art galleries and they don't want to engage with the art. That's fucking acceptable. Like, because someone doesn't like a 16th century painting, you don't take a photo of them and like complain about them online. I just think that's super.
Something, absolutely.
You know what? I don't appreciate Bette Midler's music, and I probably put in headphones if I was listening to it. Does that make me? Was she going to tweet about me too? Bette Midler, huh? Are you?
I don't know if I accepted Bette Midler, Brian.
I have looked into Bette Midler's eyes, and I don't care for them.
Very deep cut joke. But no, I think it's the same with Buffy, where particularly in such a close reading of a TV show as we are, and arguably this isn't what was intended for it.
Yeah.
But it can be both. It can be, just a really fun show to watch and also have this depth. I can do both and neither from scene to scene, and that's fine. It doesn't have any responsibility to us, but then it has the potential to do great things like the imagery in this episode. And it's actually one of the threads that I think Faith has one of the most, I was going to say faithfully, which is really challenging, I think, a synonyms for, but really consistent storylines going forward in terms of her redemptive arc on Angel, on the show Angel, and how she kind of processes that coming back in season 7. And actually in the continuation comics as well, one of the things that happens is after all the Slayers are activated, she goes with Giles, and Giles, again, being someone who understands certain things need to be done that maybe Buffy can't be aware of. And there are Slayers out there who are doing bad things, who actually genuinely are either murdering other Slayers for their power or using their power to break into banks and various different things. And Faith acts as a white hat, stopping these other rogue Slayers, which is like an interesting development.
Yeah.
Of this idea that maybe you can kill people if they're Slayers.
Yeah. It's
But when she encounters Buffy again, and Buffy thinks that she's actually doing something sinister when she doesn't realize she's working with Giles, they get into a fight, and Faith again starts drowning her in a shallow pool, kind of evoking that imagery again of constantly trying to like come out of the mirror world and assume her real shadow self. Or
I mean, shadow selves are the name of the game in this episode, certainly.
Yeah.
So I mean, Faith actively, I think, even vocalizes being the shadow self in this episode. So at one point, Faith says to Buffy, "You can't handle watching me living my own way, having a blast because it tempts you. You knew it could happen to you. Sorry, you knew it could be you." And it's just like,
and Buffy hits her.
Buffy does hit her. So Faith is also like going on about, oh, did you enjoy the kind of the wrongness of being with Angel and the
excitement when he went psycho even a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very much like, the calls come from inside the psyche. Faith is like screaming from Buffy's internal thoughts, and she is that like wandering, actually existing within her own power version of Buffy, like the Buffy without control. She's the wandering id and the shadow self that needs to be integrated. I mean, like, one of the classic things that you do with the shadow self in literature is you either kill it or you kill it kills you, or you like hug it and it hugs you, kind of thing. And like Buffy and Faith will consistently just try to fucking kill each other. I mean, like, it's so funny how much Faith is a shadow self to Buffy. Like they fucking swap bodies in the next episode, in the next season, which is hilarious.
Yeah, well, like Buffy just is one of those personalities. She doesn't get on well with people who are similar to her.
Oh yeah,
she surrounds herself with very contrasting people.
Same.
But yeah, no, it's good. It's and just a switch tack a little bit for the moment. One of the other elements we have in this episode is kind of the development of Wesley as attempting to be a watcher. Does a terrible job of overhearing that Faith has done this and causing the watcher goons to try and capture her, which
I just find very. I'm not sure. I found that a tiny bit of bad writing. I think that Wesley was he used for the text whatever way they could, because in the last episode he so quickly gave up. Remember, he was being tortured with Giles, and he gave up. What happened again? Did he give up the Buffy and Faith's location or something?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, he did
sure.
Something which was really not okay. It was
exactly, but like in this episode, surely he wouldn't. I find it unusual that he specifically doubles down on that shitty actions.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think what it provides is Buffy has such a strong father figure in Giles, and ostensibly, in many ways, Wesley should be her father figure. He is the Luigi to Giles' Mario, but he's such a weak person.
Yeah,
I think the lack of that support, it drives her towards the mayor, who, in every reading of Faith, we say arguably is actually a very strong and in many ways positive figure in her life.
Yeah, I mean, like Faith, the mayor is to Faith as Giles is to Buffy.
Yeah, and I was so excited for it because I could see it when it was happening. The scene where Buffy comes to confess to Giles. Faith has already gotten there, sold her out, and Giles is chewing Buffy out, saying, "Faith, get out of here and you could deal with Buffy. Buffy, I can't believe you did this." She's crying, saying, "Giles, please believe me, I wouldn't do it." And he's like, "I know you didn't do it."
Yeah. It's, I mean, in a worse show, like in every instance, like, in the worst show of Buffy, what Giles does in that moment is like actually believe Faith, and that's like because that's it's an easy twist, it's an easy thing to like write around. Exactly. Yeah. Just the fact that it's so brief and so like fleeting, and just like, yeah, we need to help her, like that girl. Yeah. Anyway, it's actually really, it's great. It's good writing. And one of the nice lines there is that she may have many talents, Buffy, but fortunately lying is not one of them.
Yeah. And one of the things I think this episode really fleshes out around Faith, because she is so dangerous, because she's so strong and capable, but she is so young still, and she doesn't realize that Giles is lying to her.
Yep. Or
that Giles is deceiving her, because she still is a child in that way,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it fleshes out this kind of Watchers Council thing a little bit. When Wesley was calling home for support from the council, and he like was putting in like 25 numbers, I was like, this seems a bit silly. But apparently he is actually correctly dialing a UK number from the US.
Yeah, and apparently it's like someone's number, and like like they just like put it online, or sorry, on the not online, on TV.
Yeah, on the VHS.
Like, i.e., it doesn't start with 555.
Yeah, no, I was like, that's just why it seems incongruous. But one of the odd things is when he comes to arrest her and take her away, he says that he's arresting her under the authority of the Watchers Council of Britain.
Weird.
Which just makes...
Yeah.
So it opens so many questions. Are there Watchers Councils in other countries? Is it like a Commonwealth thing where they control all the Watchers everywhere, which it does seem to be? If so, how did it migrate from Africa to being a colonially controlled thing? I don't know. It just opens to the whole thing for me.
It does. Yeah. It does. It's a complete mess. That scene was also very confusing for many reasons. I mean, like, it's very upsetting because, that could have been the end of the Faith problem, like where like Angel like actively helps her and just like shows her that he understands what she's going through and he's getting through to her. But why didn't the Watchers Council kill Angel? Surely that would be like,
while they're there, particularly seeing it's like
they just like cover him in a bunch of like nets.
It's actually very funny because he is, even in his Angel personality, like incredibly strong and powerful and capable, and just two English guys throw a big butterfly net over him, and not only do they kind of kick him in the kidneys a bit, but not only do they do this, he is still there a good 20-30 minutes later when Buffy arrives. Whenever she comes after this has happened, he's still flailing in this butterfly net trying to get out.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah, but no, it actually was a really strong characterization, because it could have been, again, a throwaway concept. But they really spend some time with Angel, chaining her up and being smart enough to not give her the leeway and not give her an opportunity to escape, not being susceptible obviously to her sexual advances or anything like that, because he totally understands that she's been completely manipulative. And he says, like, oh, it's not that I don't trust you. It's like, no, actually I don't trust you because I know you. And he really does try to get through to her on the level of someone who has been in a similar place. And yeah, she's coming around, and Wesley fucks it all up.
Yeah.
But that's good writing for me. Like, Angel's story could be finished after the last few episodes, and he could just be hanging around. But I think they really do try to set up what value he is going to bring as an independent actor in Angel. Yeah.
As a backdoor season, it's very strong for Angel, I think, because it really does play out his storyline in this season, and then once it gets to Angel, it feels like a natural transition, and they've set up a lot of the themes already for the show. Speaking of Angel, the TV show, and characters therein, Cordelia is in this episode. Thank fuck, because we do love her. And she arrives and she starts flirting with Wesley, who says, she's like, oh, I need books, Giles. Freud and Jung, book me. And I was just like, come on, Joss. That's it's
a bit on the nose,
a bit on the stake. And when Wesley hears this, he says, oh, you're giving a class in this? And she's like, no, taking it. And they have like a flirtatious little moment, and he seems to be excited by the fact that she's young, A, which is very disturbing, but also B, Charisma Carpenter was 28 filming this.
Yeah.
And Wesley, or Alexis Denisov was 32.
But like, how old is Wesley? Like, probably 32 as well, right?
I would have read him as late 20s, personally.
Because I say his late 20s. She's 18.
Yeah.
She's at most 18, if the dates work out. And he says, oh, I'm here to watch girls. Faith and Buffy. Hello, fellow kid.
Yeah, it's not
but
good.
even Faith calls me out saying that she's jailbait. You know, it's just, I know it's like it's like, oh, it's inappropriate because, you know, she's a student and he's a watcher, but it's like, it's really fucking inappropriate. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a level of like, oh, this is farce, as opposed to like, this might be illegal.
Speaking of things that are illegal, does Faith attempt to rape Xander or just kill him?
No, I think there's definitely an element of rape there. There's an element, well, like 100%
sexual assault.
Sexual assault, absolutely. She, you know, and very much like her whole thing she verbalizes when Xander goes to try and visit her and tries to, seemingly for some reason, he thinks that they actually have a connection. Yeah. And that he can get through to her.
And he's like, I've seen how wild you are after your post-battle, like, you know, it's just like,
but
you idiot.
Anyway, maybe let's not mix these 2 points, because he does genuinely get assaulted, because she very much is saying that I could do anything to you that I want now. You couldn't stop me. I could take what I want from you.
And a very upsetting line of like, you know, you know you want it and stuff like this.
Yeah, and I could just kill you, and then is very much choking him out when Angel comes in with a baseball bat and knocks her out.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's just not good, but like, it's obviously not good, but like, it is problematized by, again, the fact that she has all her own trauma from various different sources. She very much kind of telegraphs that she has been used by men in various different ways in the past, and that she uses this as a way of safety and also a way of diffusing situations. She probably did this a long time before she came into Slayer power.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And now she has all of these defensive tactics, but also all of this dominant power.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, not acceptable in any way, but it's a very naughty moment, isn't it? You know, it's
naughty, not naughty.
Yeah, exactly. Knotted, complex.
Yeah.
My diction is important in that one.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. It's one of the most interesting things that Buffy constantly kind of presents, which is like women as usually disadvantaged, and the various ways in which if you advantage them with physical power or agility, how that kind of complicates things.
No, you're right. That's a good point. So in this episode, so we've Xander and his like interactions really crappy. That also brings up the fact that Xander tells the group that he has slept with
and like, it's so drawn out. It's like he is just really trying to contrive a situation,
and it creates a montage. Which, I mean, if you've done an action in Buffy which has created a montage, you know you've done wrong.
Yeah, with like emotional music underneath it.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the emotional. I didn't even look up what the emotional music was. That's how little I cared.
But what I do say, and maybe this is a complete Pavlovian thing that's happening to me now, I do feel since the Zeppo, even when he is being annoying, there's not that element of like harshness to it that there used to be. I feel like I'm happy, I'm comfortable with him being part of the gang.
With the context of the Zeppo, it's hard to read Xander's actions in this episode in the sense that, you know, is it supposed to be like well intentioned but stupid? Because like well intentioned but stupid is how he's basically conducted himself the whole way through the show, you know. Sure. But in this episode, like he goes to try to help her, but also by virtue of like flashing his dominance of slept with a person.
True. I think it might be an expression, again, maybe I'm just feeling more charitable towards him now, but an expression of him being the mundane and him doing what he eventually does with Willow at the end of season 6, in the sense of like trying to unsuccessfully here use his emotional connection to disarm the situation.
But Willow is like heartbroken by this. It's the scene where she finds out is actually, it's very upsetting because
she figures it out first, and
so like it's Giles basically Xander tells them all, and Giles goes, oh, and Buffy's like, oh, and then they all look at Willow, and Willow's like, oh no, I already figured it out. I don't need to.
She's like, I don't need to say oh, because I already got it. It's actually it's weird counterpoint. It's a weirdly realistic counterpoint of comedy and tragedy, because we can see her getting upset, but at the same time that Xander is saying, oh, I have this connection with Faith, Anthony Stewart Head is looking at him like, what are you talking about? Why would you? And he actually says, you arguably have spent the least time talking to her. So it's like, I don't know, this is a real verisimilitude to it that I really enjoy it.
There's a really nice dichotomy as well here, just in the sense that Buffy is being torn between two different paths here, I think, in this episode, and Bad Girls, you know, the path of Willow, you know, the well-intentioned, considerate, and careful almost path, and the path of Faith. So I mean, she's being torn between her will and her faith. It's very because
I was just gonna say the path of Willow, the path of Faith sounds like two options you get in like a Skyrim game or something.
I know. And it's really nice. Willow does try to chew Buffy out at one point, where Buffy comes to talk to Willow because she needs to talk to someone, and Willow's like, you know, I think you've been, you know, really remiss, and like the way you've been treating me is not okay, and
all of a sudden I'm not cool enough for you because I can't kill people with my bare hands, and Buffy bursts into tears.
It's so upsetting. And Willow has a lovely line where she says, oh my god, I'm bad, I don't know my own strength. Sometimes I just unleash it and it comes out.
I made the point to you as well that I think Willow's the only character who could transfer to the Gilmore Girls as well, because she is like, she's very nice, but it's not in a one-dimensional way. It's just, you know, those people in life you meet who actually couldn't really hurt anyone if they tried, you know.
Except for all those people she kills.
Well, yeah, but like, what's a bit of murder between friends?
Between seasons. Okay, let's walk into the dusting.
Sure.
Okay, so can I drop some Buffy bits on you?
Do.
Okay. So the ship in the background during this episode is the Tanager. And I'd imagine it's just like something that's in LA generally, but it was in the background of The Usual Suspects a lot as well. Would you believe?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So
Seth Green is in this episode.
Is not in this
Isn't
episode.
in this episode. It's the only time in season 3 when one of the main cast isn't in an episode. And he was not in this episode because he was off filming Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Yeah. Those are the days, aren't they, Brian?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you might have read this too. So there's a problem here with the investigation at the beginning of the episode, where the detectives are talking to the people who live near the alley where Finch was killed. They're interrogating a woman, and they're saying, oh, so you heard a scream between 7 and 8. Was it maybe 7:30 and 8? Do you know further?
Yeah.
Of course, Finch did not scream in the last episode. He just got stabbed and kind of went, oh.
Yeah.
There's no screaming.
That's the odd one, actually, yeah.
Did you have a look at during the dock scene where Buffy is fighting Faith, and Faith does save Buffy? It's important to note there's a glimmer of hope there, because Faith does save Buffy's life by killing Mr. Trick. But
we just say about Mr. Trick, R.I.P., because I think he was a great henchman.
He was. Oh god, the way he died though is he's standing over Buffy and he's like,
he's choking her with like a belt or something. He was like, when Mr. Trick's stunt actor was wrenching Buffy's stunt actor around the set with a belt around her neck. It was quite intense.
Yeah, but he says, I hear once you've tasted a Slayer, you never go back. And I was like, that kind of represents Mr. Trick's representational issues just generally through this season.
Yeah, kind
it's
of
like
vampire Dolomite kind of thing.
Walking out with a very uncomfortable racial stereotype, basically.
Yeah.
But did you notice in the Docklands during that fight where Buffy and Faith are fighting that you see Faith's body double a couple of times?
No.
It is a bearded man.
Oh wow. Okay.
It is just a full-on. You can see he did not shave that day, and it's very uncomfortable.
I'm surprised I didn't see that actually, because I had to watch this episode in the HD remake.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because I had to because we couldn't watch it together today, so I could watch a bit in work. Or if you're someone I work with, I didn't. But we have to watch it on Amazon, so it was a HD remake, so I could see maybe I didn't see this. Maybe I didn't see Fake's beard because it had just been completely like erased by the skin smoothing of the HD remake.
A couple of other small bits for you. Willow mentions Michael, the warlock guy.
Yes, I was going to say that as well. The boy witch.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, is this the first cold open where Buffy doesn't speak?
Potentially, yeah. Oh well, I suppose actually it just literally jumped into mind. Maybe passion.
What's the cold open in Passion?
It's like Angel giving his monologue about our passions and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure.
It's definitely infrequent though.
Yeah, but like she's very notably odd, silent.
Present but silent.
Yeah, so she wakes up from her dream. She's terrified. She goes into the sitting room, and her mother's Joyce is watching a news bulletin about the body being found, and you just get a zoom in on Buffy's face, and Joyce says, "It's just terrible, isn't it?" And it's actually very just immediately breaking Buffy's heart, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I'll say is there's a point where during the montage, the country music montage, where there's one of the lines is the spoiled child inside breaks down, and it's being sung while Faith is on screen, and I was like, it's a bit on the nose, and also not a great reading of what's happening. Yeah. But anyway, so do you have any Buffy bits there, Joel?
Yeah, I just, as you mentioned the music, I will just mention as like a tangential Buffy bit. If you search on Spotify, if as a listener you have a Spotify account, for the Bronze playlist, I think it might be called Welcome to the Bronze. You get a playlist of all the music that was ever played in the Bronze, which is like great for a little bit of just like cosplay. Transylvanian Concubine is my favorite. Okay, so check that out. Otherwise, I was going to say that. Yeah, interesting bit of trivia. So Giles does talk about the fact that Slayers have killed before accidentally, and there's the suggestion here that the Watchers Council met out their own justice, that they assess it, as we discussed, but that Giles doesn't suggest she should go through the American judicial system. Yeah, which I just thought was interesting, this concept of that they do consider themselves above the law in some ways. Also, one of the things I found out in researching this episode, which isn't specifically related to it, but that the factory that was one of the mainstays in season 2 in terms of the set, because I was like, what happens to the mansion Angel's in? I went down a rabbit hole. It had a name. It's called the Brick and Brock Factory, or it was known on set as the BB Factory. Like Buffy Boys, like we are. Oh wow, it's beautiful. So that was nice. Oh, and a very rare and important moment in the episode was aforementioned when Cordelia comes to the library. You actually see Giles check out a fucking book for a student and do his job for once. Remember that time that a student turned up looking for a book and he was like, what are you doing here? Yeah, great stuff. So I enjoyed that.
I have some fashion notes for you as well. So Faith looks great in this episode generally, but did you notice they do her makeup a lot darker? She starts wearing much darker eye makeup and stuff, and towards the end she's wearing like a sheer meshy kind of black top with like nothing else underneath, and she looks great. Buffy's in her Avon Lady best in this episode. She wears like a pink coat when she goes to tell Giles. I'm sure she's holding a little clutch in front of her going to tell Giles like, oh, we need to talk
Church
about
pamphlets.
Faith. Exactly. Xander specifically,
sorry, can I just say we need to talk about Faith is also what it would say on that church pamphlet. Please go ahead.
Xander, that was good, thank you. Xander is wearing like not awful clothes. He's wearing like an oversized shirt in this episode, but it's like a flannel navy kind of thing, and it looks just like grungy rather than awful, which is confusing. Buffy wears cow print at one point, which is very upsetting.
It is cow print. I had leopard print, but I was like, that's not quite right. It is actually brown cow, stunning.
It's black cow, stunning.
But like the TV show.
Yeah, I know. And speaking of Super Mario Brothers, Willow is actually dressed up as Mario in this episode. She wears a red top and dungarees. So she
does, and a mustache and a big hat with an M on it. I also noted that Buffy at one point is wearing a lovely warm jumper. I wrote this, right? So that looks like a lovely jumper. It was the jumper I was wearing at the time. She was basically wearing like a thick black cable knit jumper. I was like, that looks really nice.
Your jumper's not cable knit. You don't know what cable knit means.
I don't. I'm using it as a shorthand for I don't know, chunky or
you know when you see like a thing has like a pattern where like it looks like part of the jumper is like folding over another part.
Sure.
Yeah, that's cable knit.
Brian's knitting a scarf right now, so I'm this one getting 24/7.
I'm not cable knitting a scarf though. All right. Do you know what the death count is? I actually happen to know it off by hand.
If you have it, hit me with it.
Great. So Faith Faith stakes 2 vampires on the docks, and then stakes Mr. Trick. That's all the killing in this episode. Yeah. See you, Mr. Trick.
Cool. And obviously we end with Faith is now firmly in the mayor's camp.
Mm-hmm. Setting up the events of the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. So will we go for ratings?
Yeah, I'd love to.
How many stakes out of 10, etc.
I don't get it.
I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry. So yeah, I think I would give this episode probably a 8.2. I started that sentence with no idea where I was going. I thought it was going to come to me, but it didn't come to me. Okay, just off the topic of dome. 8.2 Boggy's fish out of the river.
Oh. Splinters
Because
in the heart.
Splinters. Wait, that's a good one. You can have that if you want.
No, I already have a better one.
Okay. 8.2 Boggy's fish out of the river with splinters in his heart. And it's because it is a fragmented episode, but I think I love the characterization. I had a big conversation with you last night about how over the years I've really shifted to appreciate really strong characterization in my genre shows over strong world building. And this was just, Faith is such a strong, interesting character. I actually thought the angel stuff was really interesting as well. Giles and Willow, and the absolute moral consistency of Buffy that doesn't come across as one note judgmental or holier than thou. It's actually a genuine pursuit of goodness. And I was like, this episode had all that stuff, which actually makes it compelling and raises the stakes when the mayor turns into a giant snake. So yeah, I really enjoy it, even though as an actual episode of television it was a bit muddled all over the place. Yeah,
so I would probably give it about 7.1 grapes out of 10. She says, and she's like in the van, Faith is in the van, and she gets
pop that guy's head like a grape.
Yeah. So I think it was ultimately badly written. I think this episode, in less muddled waters, if they had found a way to streamline the episode better, if they had found a way to cut out some of the weird jumps between scenes, if they had found a way to like just do it a bit more concisely, and I think it could have been transcendent. Faith genuinely having a dark night in turning bad is like such a stunning note. I think they kind of fumbled it a little bit through having too many considerations.
A bit incidental.
I mean, the fact that they fit in a fucking musical montage in the middle of the episode that had so much stuff going on.
About Xander's sex life, yeah.
Yeah, it's just so unusual. I mean, just look at that Buffy Ann summary. It had so many clauses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's a muddled episode. I think the consequences are great, but I think the characterization was there, and it was strong characterization. I just think it's I think it's a bad episode. No. I think it's not the episode it could have been.
Sure. Undercooked.
Yeah, undercooked. Okay, you ready to wrap up there, Joel?
Yeah, so what are we going to watch next week?
So, speaking of shadow selves, we're going to next week watch Doppelgangland.
So good.
I can't wait.
Vampire Willow.
Vamp Willow in her full glory.
Yeah. So thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the December. I don't know where I was going with that. Enjoy your lives. I hope your lives are good. We would appreciate that if you would.
I think Doppelgangland is going to be our last episode for the year, maybe, which is going to be really nice.
Yeah, we're definitely last regular episode. So we're going to end on a high.
Yeah.
But you say, tell your friends, tell your mustachio homicide detectives, and thanks so much for listening. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Okay, so we're going to see you next time on Buffy Boys.
Buffy Boys.
See ya.
Bye.